They call me Hell, they call me Stacy, they call me Her, they call me Jane. That's not my name, that's not my name, that's not my name, that's not my name. They call me Quiet Girl, but I'm a riot. Mary Jo Lisa.
Does Islamic State pose an existential threat to the Western world, to us?
I believe it does. I mean, I wish the BBC would stop calling it Islamic State, because it's not an Islamic State. What it is an appalling, barbarous regime. It is a perversion of the religion of Islam. And, you know, many Muslims listening to this programme will recoil every time they hear the words Islamic State.
Tricky to find. If they called it that themselves, then it's tricky to find. We can call it so-called, but anyway.
Well, so-called or ISIL is better. But it is an existential threat, because what's happening here is the perversion of a great religion and the creation of this poisonous...
Right, wise words there then from DZC, only slightly undermined by the fact that the IS in ISIL stands for Islamic State. So now 120 MPs have written a letter to say that they want the BBC to stop calling Islamic State, because they say Islamic State is neither Islamic nor a state. So they've come up with a couple of ideas of their own, the government, okay? One, they'd like the BBC to call Islamic State Daesh instead, and two, they've done a deal whereby the BBC pick up the cost of free licence fees for terrorists.
The BBC has agreed to pay the cost of the licences that terrorists get free when they hit the age of 75.
Controversial. But the problem with this word, right, is this word Daesh. It's the name preferred by the Leader of the House of Commons, Chris Grayling, okay? And the problem is it's an insult. It's actually an insult. It's pejorative. In its various forms, it means...
one who sows discord.
Which the BBC have already experimented with Jeremy Clarkson. For their part, the BBC say that for them to start insulting anyone, even a terrorist group, it threatens its impartiality, OK? But Chris Grayling says...
I have to say that I have a different view of what impartiality means to the BBC.
Well, you're an idiot, then. Impartial means impartial, and the BBC is right to be it, of course. I mean, no matter what horrors they have inflicted, the BBC simply can't be seen to insult any group. Not in the news, anyway. I mean, we can obviously insult a group. Hey, S Club 7, these days, you're all fat. Apart from Hannah, and Joe, and the other girl. The blokes are fat, though, especially Paul. Now, the argument for Daesh runs like this.
The term Islamic State dignifies them, so we should use Daesh. Yes, it's pejorative, but we shouldn't be afraid to insult terrorists.
Well, in that case, why don't we stop calling them Islamic State or ISIS or ISIL or Daesh altogether? Because if you're really concerned about being rude to them, give them a really embarrassing name no one would want, like Coldplay's official fan club or Wimbledon Today. But look, the BBC must remain impartial, OK? Otherwise, it just becomes America's Fox News, which isn't exactly known for its objectivity. That is where a story like this...
Police shoot fleeing black man 16 times.
...would be reported as this.
Black man steals 16 bullets from pursuing cop.
And that isn't what we want. Or is it? Maybe this kind of opinionated rhetoric would be a breath of fresh air on the BBC. So, as a stupid Chris Grayling, refusing to call something by its name only makes it more terrifying and powerful. See also Voldemort and Michael Gove.
Again, on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, there he is, and their main story is Cameron takes the fight to ISIL, or Islamic State, so-called. Big pressure on ISIL in Syria, it suggests.
Well, it's a deadly, triangular conflict. Turkey, the Kurds, and so-called Islamic State.
Turkish warplanes attacked targets of so-called Islamic State in Syria for the first time today.
115 people have been killed in Iraq by a huge Islamic State truck bomb on the first day of Eid.
Footage purporting to show Iraqi fighter jets carrying out airstrikes against Islamic State targets has been released by the country's military.
Norman Tebbett's almost pathological arrogance came to a head this week when he tried to appropriate the English language. He objected to the BBC calling the old guard in Russia and the white supremacists in South Africa, he objected to them being called conservatives. Normo, a word does not cease to exist merely because it has been adopted by a political party. Conservative is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as adverse to rapid change, which I suggest rather neatly sums up the old guard in Russia. I don't think the poor old Beeb was seeking to suggest that this meant that Ligachoff is a paid-up member of the Chingford Blue Rinse set. They are not implying that Mrs Thatcher's about to whip a copy of Das Kapital from between her gulags, are they? Language is a subtle thing, Norman. When BBC News states that a pregnant woman went into labour, they are not saying that she rushed off to see Kinnock, her waters breaking all over the place. When they mention a liberal helping of food, they are not talking about how much tuck Sir Cyril Smith can shove away. And when they say monster raving loony, Norman, they aren't always referring to you.